Hogsmeade. The Thestral carriage rolled to a stop in front of Hogsmeade Station. The doctor hopped out and offered first Luna and then Hermione his hand to help them out. The small smile Hermione gave him when their hands touched gave him the wonderful mixture of happiness and terror that he hadn't felt since he had started dating his first wife, long before he stole the TARDIS and left Gallifrey. He paused as he tried to make sense of that thought. Technically, he had been married before that, but not as the doctor, so he didn't think his marriage to Patience counted. The combination of Ginny and Harry helping Ron out of the carriage broke the doctor out of his memories. Ron was still in shock from learning his baby sister was actually an alien who was 8 years older than him. Luna didn't seem surprised at all. It took Hermione slapping Ron on the back of his head to regain his composure.
Ow! Lay off, Hermione!
Ron protested as he rubbed the sore spot. He looked at Ginny and smirked.
Being an alien explains a lot, like how you managed to avoid being the target of George and Fred's experiments all the time. You must have used alien mind control on them, he teased.
Ginny stuck her tongue out at Ron. Truth was that after a few times of being on the receiving end of Ginny's paybacks, the twins learned it was better for their health if they used Ron as their guinea pig instead. Thinking of the twins made Ginny stop in her tracks. At some point, she was going to have to tell the rest of her family what had happened.
Dad, we need to set up a time for us to explain things to the rest of my family. Molly and Arthur deserve to know as soon as possible,
Ginny told the doctor. The doctor noticed that Ginny seemed uncomfortable calling Molly and Arthur by their first names. They will always be Mum and Dad to you. Never forget that. Whenever I'm in the same place as Arthur, please call me Doctor, the doctor suggested. I owe Arthur more than I could ever repay, and he deserves that title more than I do, he assured her. He smiled as he decided what they would do with the rest of their day. Why don't we go visit them today? No time like the present. Well, actually that's not quite true, especially when dealing with a time loop. But you get the idea, he told the group.
How are we going to get there? Hermione's the only one with an operation license, Ron pointed out.
It was Ginny's turn to smack Ron on the back of his head. She pointed at the doctor, while he chimed in and said, "We are here to see my spaceship." Ron started to grin from ear to ear when he thought about showing up at home in an alien spaceship.
Wicked!
He exclaimed.
So where is this ship of yours?
Hermione asked the doctor. Not far. I left her parked on the main street just a few blocks from here, the doctor replied. Hermione looked over at Ginny for confirmation. The thought of a spaceship in the middle of Hogsmeade and no one noticing it was just too far-fetched. Ginny simply shrugged. She had never seen the TARDIS and had no idea what one looked like. The doctor led them through the village until they stood in front of the old blue box.
Why does it say police public call box?
Hermione asked. She looked around and saw that people passing by paid no attention to the odd addition to the street.
And why doesn't anyone notice it sitting right here?
She added.
I thought don't see me spells only worked on muggles,
she explained. The doctor affectionately ran his hand down the wood exterior of the TARDIS. Technology. Not magic, remember? He replied. The TARDIS protects herself from being noticed by 2 ways, he stated. The first line of defense is her perception filter. She uses a telepathic field to nudge a person's awareness away from her, making her effectively invisible, he explained. The second line of defense is her chameleon circuit. In the first nanosecond when she arrives somewhere, the TARDIS scans everything within a 100-kilometer radius to choose a form that would draw the least amount of attention if something should get past the perception filter. After sorting through thousands of different possibilities, she decided she would rather stay looking like a 1963 police call box. Thank you very much, he told them sarcastically. I think the old girl's a bit vain, and is simply fond of blue, he said with a wink. The TARDIS let him know she heard him by making him try the key several times before unlocking. The doctor held the door for everyone as they entered the TARDIS. He had prepared himself for their lack of reaction to the inside being bigger than the outside, ever since he read a book about the origin of wizards' tents. As soon as she was inside, Ginny ran to the center of the control room and dashed from console to console as she pieced together what each control did. Harry was right behind her, curious as to why all the controls looked like they had been recycled from old junk. Ron and Luna followed the other couple while Luna commented on how pretty the walls were. Hermione stopped midway between the doors and the large glass tube in the center of the room. She couldn't put her finger on it, but being in the TARDIS was oddly comforting. She waited until the doctor shut the door and walked with him to the center console. "Ginny, do you know the coordinates for where your family lives?" the doctor inquired. Ginny nodded in reply. "Good. Use that keyboard on your right to enter them," he instructed. Ginny stepped around the consoles counterclockwise until she reached an antique typewriter. A few quick keystrokes and she had their course plotted in. "All right, everyone, here we go," the doctor announced as he spun some knobs and threw a couple of switches. Harry and Ron grinned at each other as they recognized the odd, wheezing, grinding noise from when they had been shopping for Hermione's birthday presents. Hermione had a strange look on her face as she tried to remember where she had heard that noise before. She found the noise soothing, like a mother making comforting noises to her child. The doctor ran around the console and manipulated other controls, and soon the noises from the center column ceased. He took a deep breath and pressed down the plunger that opened the doors. "Right! Time to meet the rest of the family," he said bravely. The Burrow, Ottery, St. Catchpole. Molly Weasley was dusting the family room furniture when movement from the family grandfather clock drew her attention. The hands for Ron, Ginny, and Harry swung suddenly from school to home to join the ones for the twins, her and her husband. The twins had taken to stopping by on the weekends to catch up with their parents and share in some of Molly's famous home-cooked meals.
What have they done now?
She moaned before hearing a noise like chains being dragged over gears coming from the garden. Arthur and his twin sons were in the shed tinkering with some enchanted muggle items when they heard a very strange noise coming from the garden. "I wonder what that could be," Arthur muttered as he drew his wand from his robe. "I don't know," Fred stated. "Let's go find out," George said, finishing his twin sentence. Both young men were grinning at the anticipation of some sort of mischief. All three of them stepped out of the shed and looked curiously at the large blue box sitting in the middle of Molly's pumpkin patch. They were even more surprised when the doors opened and several people walked out. The only person the twins didn't recognize was the man who looked to be somewhere in his mid-20s. Ron looked back at the TARDIS in admiration. Apparating, or heaven forbid, traveling by a portkey, always made him sick to his stomach. As far as he was concerned, traveling by alien spaceship was the only way to go. Harry's smile told Ron he was thinking along the same lines. Ron looked over to the house and waved cheerfully. "Hi, Mum!" he called out.
Ron! Ginny! Why aren't you at school? Did you get suspended?
Molly replied, jumping to the worst scenario she could think of, her tone sharp enough to cut.
Hello, Harry dear. Glad to see you. You too, Hermione, Luna,
she added. Ron rolled his eyes at how his mother was able to change gears so quickly. Molly looked suspiciously at the other member of the group.
Who might you be?
She demanded. Arthur cringed at his wife's rudeness. The doctor smiled warmly at the woman who had raised his daughter. "Hello, I'm the doctor," he replied cheerfully. Molly was slightly taken aback. Arthur had finally gotten around to telling her about the Manticore attack in Hogsmeade and what part the doctor had played in keeping their son alive. She had assumed the Black Cat would be older. The doctor looked to be about Charlie's age. Ginny stepped in between Molly and the doctor. She waited until Arthur, Fred, and George walked over to join them.
Doctor, these are two of my brothers, Fred and George, and these are my parents, Molly and Arthur Weasley, she said, introducing her family.
"Yes, we met in Hogsmeade," Arthur replied, shaking the doctor's hand again. Ginny took in a deep breath and decided she might as well get things over with.
Mum, Dad, this is the doctor, my biological father,
she said steadily.